Well, it's good to see everybody here again today. It's always fun. Look forward to being with there. Rita's now with me to help me get my sermon up, and she can move quickly. She's amazing. Uh, and here we go. Carl, my sermon title today is What to Do with a Canaanite Woman. Okay, I don't have to tell any of you, 2020 has been one rough and tough year. The pandemic crisis is all around us and it's horrible. There have been protests and riots in cities all across our country, which has been unthinkable. And then our economy has oftentimes been in free fall. People are being laid off by the millions. And while I don't understand all the reasons for any of these profound changes in our lives, they do make us all feel a bit helpless. In the past, when I have experienced events similar to the tumult of the 2020, I have always found it helpful, at least when I think of it, I've always found it helpful to check back into the bedrock of my Christianity to help me try to sort things out. When I do take the time, unfortunately to my dismay, there are times when the church itself has been an obstacle to my response. Funny, however, I also found the gospel lessons, today's gospel lessons, give strong clues on how to best to respond. This morning, I thought I would tell you about a pivotal moment in my life when I was reading this particular gospel changed my life. Once a long time ago, I was dean of the Calvary Cathedral in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's a fancy name, meaning I was senior pastor, but in a cathedral, we get this name dean, and it's sort of fun. And I also changed my name from the Reverend. When I was dean, I was the Very Reverend. I didn't feel that way, but at least that's what at the time it told me. It told me I was.
Not.
Quiet, Rita. As a church, we were proud of our Native American ministry. At least we were proud of it as long as it stayed in the undercroft. The stairway downstairs was a sharp dividing line from the institutional church upstairs and our ministry to the Lakota people down in Teochpa-a-Wakam, or Family of God, downstairs. The staircase was always a constant, hurtful reminder of who was in and who was out. Calvary's constant struggle was and still is who was in and who was out. To some degree, that was my problem also. I had to determine who was included and who was not. The stairs were the reference point to determine if inclusion in the parish happened or not. I felt a bit strange every Sunday, inwardly at least, as I led worship and preached at the 8 o'clock service and the 10:30 service upstairs. They were both lily white congregations. And then I went down those stairs to Teochpa-a-Wakam to lead worship to a 95% Native American congregation. Calvary had separated the Native American service from the regular service because they thought that the Indian people would want ownership of their own worship. And in some ways they did. However, in another part was that it also made it easier for us to feel safe in our own environment without facing our fears of people we knew to be very different, and some felt even dangerous. Truthfully, these people weren't like us at all. Their skin color was different, their customs were totally different, and what's more, they were poor. So in our wisdom, we separated. Yes, there were some good points that emerged from our experiment, but there was also growing tension and pain. Often I had to admit that even though I was Teochpa-a-Wakam's priest, I didn't really want that role. I did it because I had to. It was part of my job description. When I began as their priest, there was no real connection, to them as a people. It was hard to bring the sermon upstairs, which was about giving to the poor that were downstairs. It was just hard. Teochpa-a-Wakam at first was just a small part of my overall ministry that had to be done. My real responsibility was the historic church that met upstairs and paid my salary. After a couple of years, a young Lakota couple came to me. They were weeping as they told me that their baby had died the previous evening. As I remember, the weather that summer had been cruelly hot, especially for South Dakota. While I had a comfortable air conditioned home, most in the Native American section of town did not. All this young couple had was one small portable fan, a fan that really didn't cut the heat. As they told their story, they told me that their baby was cranky in the oppressive heat. So, to keep the baby comfortable and what they thought would be safe, they placed their baby neatly between them on their bed. During the night, the baby, being so small, couldn't tolerate the stifling heat. When the couple woke the next morning, a terrible tragedy had occurred. As they woke to see the baby, much to their horror, the baby was dead. The next morning, the family came to my office with a simple request. They wanted to bury their child in traditional Lakota style, which required an all-night wake. Could they please use the overnight for that wake? After all, back at the reservation, it was always the church that held the wake. But Calvary Cathedral was not a reservation church. Calvary Cathedral was the cathedral. Yes, I knew the policies of the cathedral. I knew it was not allowed. And though I knew the reasons, truthfully, the reason for the rule was simply because you just couldn't trust these people. They would steal all our precious things, at least we thought they would. They would leave the cathedral a mess. It simply couldn't be done. That was the church's law. I was about ready to tell the young family the law. After all, it would be much easier on me to just say, no, it can't be done. But then the mother began to plead with me one more time. I still remember her screaming, please, please, please let us come. We have nowhere else to go with our baby. Please let us come. I knew instinctively that not only was losing her precious child devastating, but also the humiliation of coming to me was agony. Yet they were there, and they felt they had no choice. My friends, I'm here to tell you, this was a pivotal moment in my life, and I will never forget it. No, not only did my laws change that fateful day, so did the cathedrals. We welcomed that family into the cathedral with open arms. We even helped with the food and the worship held throughout that long night. Most of the cathedral watched and listened, and we learned a great deal that night about hospitality and how to love our brothers and sisters. As far as I can tell, that's the exact point of today's gospel. Jesus knew full well that many of the laws enforced in those days were for the benefit of the institutional religion, not for God at all. Those laws were never designed for people who really needed them. The dietary laws became a way to exclude. The prophets, on the other hand, continually warned the Jewish nation and the priests to remember the plight of the widows, the orphans, the sojourners on the land, as well as the poor. But on the priestly side, there was always that push for the purity among the people, the need to separate us from them. And the purity most often went out because it was safer, easier, and kept out the dreaded riffraff. The laws became a safety net to separate good people like you and me from those other people over there we knew were the bad seed. Unfortunately, that's what religious groups often do when left to their own devices. Our churches become safe havens for the so-called good people, and they forget their mandate for those struggling just outside the door. We close ourselves to their plea. Perhaps it's surprising that Jesus walks immediately into a situation that challenges him on the same exact issues. Would Jesus exclude this Canaanite woman simply because she wasn't a Jew? Or would he pay absolutely no attention to all that he had just taught? If you read close, I believe the scripture tells us this was also a pivotal moment in our Lord's life, right here for all of us to see. The Canaanite woman forces Jesus not only to listen to his own rhetoric, but also act on it. Jesus was no fool. He knows that speaking to the Canaanite woman would be a breach of the law. Good Jews didn't speak to Canaanites, excuse me, because frankly, they just weren't Jews. They were not God's chosen people. They were unclean half-breeds. And adult women were simply not to be spoken to if they weren't their wives. Speaking to this woman was wrong on every social law you can imagine. But here they are, Jesus, a Jewish man, and a Canaanite woman, interacting on a deeply personal matter, the healing of her beloved daughter. Jesus' disciples weren't all excited about her confronting Jesus either. They simply asked Jesus if they could get rid of this nuisance of a woman once and for all. After all, they couldn't be bothered by trash like her. There was God's royal work that needed to be done. A tormented Jesus bluntly tells the woman that he was sent not for the lost sheep of Israel. A tormented Jesus bluntly tells the woman that he was sent only for the lost sheep of Israel and not for Canaanites, especially not a Canaanite woman. But now we are observers to one of the most important crossroads in Jesus's life. Does he mean what he says or not? Does he keep the law or does he reform it? Does he stay pure or does he become defiled? Does Jesus want to be liked by the Jewish religious establishment, or does he simply hear the plea of this simple outsider for help? He must realize there would be consequences to pay either way. The die is cast. What would he do? The woman rushes back up to Jesus as the story comes to a thrilling climax. She begins to beg for help from the only one she believes can help her. She doesn't care if Jesus is a Jew, a Roman, an Egyptian, or even a Yankee for that matter. She just knows that this Jesus is the only one who can bring healing to her stricken daughter. Jesus responds hesitatingly at first. He tells her that it just isn't right. It isn't right for him to give a Canaanite woman the food that was meant for God's children. And then, as if to downgrade her even more, Jesus cruelly states, by throwing it to the dogs. But then something remarkable happens as she responds with these famous, mesmerizing, life-changing words. She says, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." And that's it. That's all it took. The very heart of God bursts open. Jesus is humbled. He knows that the woman is right. And who knows, at that very instant itself, eternity itself is changed to its very core. We all know that St. Joseph's is surrounded on all sides by all sorts of people. And we do a pretty good job, I think. But those people we always need to remember are right outside our door. They are people who might look differently than we look. They are people who might talk differently than we talk. They are people who might even believe different things than we do. But I am convinced to the core of my being that these very same people have as much a right to be called and included as children of God as we do. We do wrong when we make up rules to keep ourselves pure and holy at the exclusion of anyone else, even though by the grace of God, We call ourselves Episcopalian and Christian. We do wrong, my sisters and brothers, when we try to keep ourselves safe from those outside our doors. These people need and desire as much love and grace as we do. I think there must be some kind of human DNA that makes religions and churches and people somehow believe that they are the promised ones at the exclusion of others. Today, we see in the gospel that even Jesus at times could get caught up short. That tells me that it must be even easier for us to get caught up. We need to constantly be open to the others that surround us. We must always allow our doors to be open and to let the Holy Spirit blow through and change us to our very core. If Jesus, if Jesus's heart could be changed, then thanks be to God, so can ours. Amen and alleluia.